Hey everyone, welcome back to Portal of Wisdom. I am back today with another story for you. So if you are new to the channel, like and subscribe and click that little post notification bell so you get alerted when I post new videos. And I know the majority of you are not subscribed to the channel, so if you could subscribe, that definitely helps the algorithm and helps the channel grow and helps us produce more content for you. So today we are going to talk about another lost gold story. This one takes place in Nevada. So most of our great stories tend to be in the West or in the Southwest, and this is another very good story. So this story, like I said, takes place in Nevada. The year was 1908. There was a prospector in western Nevada that had been prospecting quite a bit in the western Nevada mountains. His name was Tim Cody. He had been prospecting in these mountains for some time in this area, and he had started to develop a reputation of not necessarily being a great prospector. One of the issues that he was said to suffer from was lack of good direction. He was known to be able to get lost in the simplest of situations. He was also known to not carry enough food and water while out in the mountains, which was of course frowned upon by a lot of the local prospectors in the area. Tim was also known to drink a little too much at times. So therefore, the hardened prospectors in the area, they did not see him as a very skilled prospector. And Tim generally didn't seem to find too much when out prospecting, probably due to a lot of the reasons that were already mentioned. So Tim usually wasn't taken too seriously. And likely due to the perception of Tim lacking skills of a good prospector as seen according to the other prospectors in the area, Tim had a hard time finding friends or partners to go out and prospect with. So Tim found himself alone prospecting quite often, and that is what happened in this particular story. As mentioned in Desert Magazine, June 1948, author Harold Waite states, quote, Tim should not have been a prospector since he lacked the most important single qualification for the job, a good sense of direction. Tim could lose himself even when sober, and he was not always sober, end quote. On this particular prospecting trip into the mountains, Tim had made camp at Stewart Springs or Stewart Spring, which is many miles away from the little town of Gold Dyke, Nevada. And apparently that was the town that he went in and out of to supply and resupply and drink and things like that. And anyhow, that was the town that he tended to prospect out of as his base of operations. But he tended to camp at Stewart Springs. So he prospected a lot of the area around here, and this area was said to have some ancient dry lake beds, and it was also littered with a lot of little ravines and arroyos and a lot of good areas to look and prospect, and that's where Tim found himself quite a bit. So on the particular day in question, Tim spent the day going in and out of these ravines and up and down the hills and popped into the next ravine over and then the next ravine over, and he was looking for outcroppings or anything of interest. And after moving about aimlessly throughout the day without paying too much attention to his bearings, Tim realized that he was lost. He had gone miles and miles since he left camp, and he had no idea what direction camp was, and the sun was getting ready to set soon. At this point, he found himself at the base of a hill that was covered with junipers. And junipers are those little scrubby little desert bushes that don't need a lot of water. They're more of an evergreen, and they tend to be in these high desert areas. So Tim decided to climb this hill of junipers and see if he could have a better look at the landscape and determine where he might be. So Tim climbed this hill and he looked in all directions for landmarks that he might recognize. And as he scanned the horizon, he did see some familiar landmarks. Luckily, he was up high enough to see them. So he managed to recognize two landmarks, which were Paradise Peak, which is just north and east of Gold Dyke, and Pilot Cone, a black pyramidal-shaped mountain, which was located in a westward direction near Rawhide, Nevada. So he was happy that he now had somewhat of an idea where he was. So he sat down to have a smoke from his pipe. And as he sat there enjoying his pipe, he looked around at his immediate surroundings, and he was surprised to find that near his feet was a vein of white quartz, and it appeared to be laced with rusty iron. Now, when it comes to veins of quartz, it seems like just about any prospector is not going to be able to resist taking a closer look at it. It doesn't matter if you're a seasoned prospector or if you don't know too much about prospecting. Regardless, just about any prospector is going to take a couple samples of a quartz vein like that. And Tim was no different, and he did exactly that. Now, his first look at it, it just looked like some rusty iron going through this quartz vein. But Tim used his pick or his hammer, and he took some samples from this hillside, and he hit it a couple of times with his pick or his hammer to break it open, and the cracked open pieces of quartz revealed some gold inside. So Tim was extremely ecstatic with his find. Gold fever hit him immediately, and all common sense left his body. He felt he had to try to get to town right now and stake his claim and gather supplies and get back out here and mine his find. So he took a mighty swing of his pick and he buried his pick into a nearby tree or big juniper to mark his location and his claim. Then he took note of his surroundings and he started to head back toward the town of Gold Dyke. Apparently, he did not make it to Gold Dyke because after 3 days of wandering, he found himself at an abandoned mine, the Pactolus mine. He managed to find food and water there, and he replenished himself. Then he was able to get his bearings again, and he headed for Gold Dyke. This time he did find his way to the little town of Gold Dyke, but he could never find his way back to the juniper-covered hill that he buried his pick into that tree. He looked for many years, but he never managed to find it again. And this area is still pretty desolate, and although it's very unlikely that his pick would still be lodged in a tree there, as that's over 100 years ago, it very well could be lying on the ground and rusting and possibly be fairly close to a quartz vein that is laced with gold. So that is the story of Tim Cody's lost gold ledge in western Nevada.